This was insane. I wanted to learn to love something that absolutely sucked. And I mean horrible. Something that if you were to try, you probably wouldn't continue doing.
So here's what I did. Rather than just doing one thing, I decided to make it even harder and do several. So I created an entire morning routine full of the hardest things I could possibly imagine. Something so tough, no one in their right mind would want to stick to it. But here's where it gets cool, because not only did I want to just do it, I wanted to learn how to love it. And this experiment actually went really well, but before we get into it, this is my friend Dr. Ben Ryan, who's a neuroscientist at Stanford University. He explained that I could learn to love this using a process called operant conditioning.
Operant conditioning is a classical psychology principle. It's a way of learning, associative learning. What operant conditioning is basically you either reinforce or punish someone for a behavior to thereby increase or decrease the probability of that person doing that behavior again.
So after talking for a while, we decided that the best course of action would be to punish myself with social isolation and reward myself by letting me see my friends and family. So here's how the entire thing would work. For the next week, the task would be to wake up every morning at 4 a.m. Then I would get into a cold shower, immediately followed by an hour-long run. After the run, I would do an intense workout consisting of 1,000 jumping jacks, 250 push-ups, and a 5-minute plank. Then it was time for breakfast, where I'd have this cookie. Wait, back up a second. A cookie? That doesn't sound hard. This cookie has tree nuts, and I'm deathly allergic to tree nuts. This is a longer story for another video, but in short, I've slowly been exposing myself over the course of several months. But this was important to know, and you'll see why later. Then after breakfast, I would have to meditate for 30 minutes, then clean for 15, which is my least favorite chore. And then for 6 hours straight with no distractions, I would have to work. And then if I did all that, I would get to go to the gym. Wait, what do you mean get to go to the gym? Wouldn't that just make the routine harder? Alright, let me explain. This is my friend Paul. And just over a year ago, we made a commitment to go to the gym every single day. We always go together because it keeps us committed and it's just more fun that way. And while going to the gym is hard, since I've started, I've kind of learned to love it. Sound familiar? And since the social interaction with Paul wouldn't be allowed for me, since of course I'm trying to use it as a motivation to get through my routine. If I didn't finish or made any mistakes in the routine, I wouldn't be allowed to go to the gym. In fact, if I failed at all, I would be forced to sit down in a corner in complete social isolation until my bedtime at 8 o'clock. Sounds boring, right? Good, because it is. And in theory, this would be everything in place in order to keep me motivated to do this routine. So with that being said, it was time to start. On day 1, I felt really motivated in the morning. The previous night, I put my phone on the opposite side of the room, so it forced me to get out of bed when the alarm went off. It was super early and I was kind of tired, but I was a little bit excited to see how the routine would go. The cold shower definitely sucked, but I had a little secret to make it easy. After all, this is operant conditioning where we associate positive behavior with a positive reward. So I decided that I'd take a hard candy and eat it as soon as I got inside the shower. This way, I'd at least be excited for something and it'd make the pain of the cold shower not quite as bad. But for this to work as well as possible, it would also mean that this would be the only time that I would ever be able to eat hard candy. And I stuck to that. That's a new rule for myself. But after the shower, when I went outside, it just so happens that it started to snow. And I knew for the remainder of the challenge, it was gonna be pretty cold. But with my warmest hoodie on, I wasn't gonna give up. When it came time for the morning routine, I got through it and it took me over half an hour. But here's where the problem started to arise. It was at breakfast. Do you remember those cookies I was talking about? Well, you see, admittedly, the week before I kind of stopped doing it. This was a separate challenge where I started to slowly expose myself to nuts, which I'm deathly allergic to. Like anaphylactic. If I would have licked one a few months ago, I probably would have died. Now, the good news is I've made a lot of progress, where I was eating about a quarter of a tree nut a day. The bad news is, since I went a while without that exposure, when I went to have it again for the first time, I had a pretty bad reaction. It wasn't deadly, which is really fortunate, but immediately my throat began to swell and my stomach started hurting a lot. But I decided to brush it off and move on with the challenge, into meditation. Meditation is a practice with huge rewards, but I've always struggled to find the discipline to sit myself down and do it. And it just so happens that today, my stomach got worse and worse. I knew that if I gave up, I'd fail, but eventually it was becoming so bad, I found myself almost paralyzed on the couch. At this point, I had to give in, so I crawled back to my room and took a nap for several hours, knowing that I failed the challenge for that day. When I woke up, there was still about 5 hours left before I had to go to bed to wake up for tomorrow. I was still in pain, but I went over to my living room where I sat there in silence with nothing to do. I surrendered my phone, just waiting for the alarm to tell me to get up and go back to bed. This literally felt like defeat. It was extremely boring and I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to do something, anything, but this gave me incentive to keep pushing on the next day. On day 2, I woke up at 4, got into a cold shower and went on a run just as normal. And when I was running, I got to listen to music, which is something that I didn't get while I was isolated. This motivated me so much, and after the workout, when it came time for breakfast, I started with half a cookie this time and built my way up from there. And from this point on, things started to go really smoothly. I had associated at least one positive reward with all of the activities of the routine. During the 6 hours of daily productivity, I found that I was getting a lot of stuff done. Since I wasn't getting distracted and I didn't have anything to worry about, it was really easy to stay motivated. And as the days went by, it was more than just motivation. I was actually starting to enjoy it. When I'd go for runs in the morning, I was smiling because I knew I was the only one up at that hour. It was like a game now, and I felt so rewarded from it. I finally made it through and finished the last day, sticking to the routine. And you know what? I think I'm gonna keep going. I've learned that people are capable of much more than we think, and often what holds you back is all in your mind. Try this for yourself and subscribe to see more future challenges.